Welcome back to the crypt. Today we're painting teeth and talking about the romance genre. Don't worry, they're fake. The teeth, I mean. Okay, so I used to really hate romance. Like the entire genre, pretty much the idea of it as well. And there are lots of reasons for that. But recently I've come to a lot of realizations about myself and personally. One of them being that I still have a lot of internalized misogyny and stuff that I need to work through. And part of that was looking through a lot of things that are categorized as feminine and how we tend to look down on them as a society. And women are just as guilty of that as men. Last year I read a romance and it actually wasn't that bad. The book was okay. It wasn't stellar. It's not going to win awards exactly. But it was way better than I expected it to be. And with that came this really strange realization that I tended to discount a lot of romance with very little to no proof or evidence. There was no real reason I was discounting it. I just discount it from the start. So I did a lot of soul searching and whatnot, and I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit. This is especially good to be talking about now because one of the projects I'm thinking of working on for NaNoWriMo would be a historical romance. So I kind of need to deal with a lot of these false ideas I have in my head about romance. So I think one of the biggest issues I have, and a lot of people have, with the romance genre is the amount of toxicity that exists within it concerning relationships. A lot of them tout a lot of very dangerous romantic elements that are not romance. They're abusive relationship elements. But they tout them as if they are a good thing, and I think we all know how dangerous that is. It normalizes a lot of really toxic behaviors. But when I started to analyze that thought I had and that assumption, I thought to myself, wait a minute, why do I think this about the romance genre, but I'm not necessarily thinking that same thing towards any other genre? I mean, if you guys have seen any of my book reviews, you will probably have noted that I've made note that there are lots of toxic relationships in other books, even if they're not categorized particularly as romance first and foremost. They still oftentimes will contain toxic elements. Relationships between characters, regardless of if they're romantic or not, still can be toxic regardless of genre. And a lot of these characters can be really bad characters, regardless of genre. So why is it that I fixate and I'm so hard on romance, but I don't have that exact same energy for other genres, even though they're sinning the same sin, essentially? I mean, sure, you could say one of the reasons for that might be because, with romance, there's no distraction of the other genre elements, which is true. In romance, you are entirely fixated on the romance going on. You're not distracted by, fighter pilots and stuff going out to die in space. So it's harder to overlook the issues. Also, don't even get me started on how, especially younger me, I didn't do this as much when I was older, but I still participate in it a little bit. I'm still guilty. But seeing romance as a cringy genre, really anything with the term cringe, as if one person's interest is something that should be looked down upon. That's the real cringe, is looking down on someone's personal interest when that personal interest isn't hurting anybody. At least it's not hurting people more than any other interest. Why is it if I were to bring a Harlequin romance with me to a beach, I personally don't like those, but if I did like them and if I did bring them to the beach and read them, that would be considered oh, that's so cringy, and she reads but she's not reading real books. And that's a whole other discussion, whether or not things that are written quickly and don't have the best editing, whether those qualify as a real book or not. I have thoughts on that one. That's a different discussion. But it's still like looking at romance as like not a legitimate genre. So these are things I've thought about since last year, but I just didn't have time to sit down and make a video. I still kind of don't have time, to be honest. I'm really busy this week. I'm getting ready for the Mill event, which I'm very excited about. I will link a video up in the cards announcing times and dates. I'm so excited about that. But one of the topics for that is going to be romance and romantic tropes and stuff. And the reason for that is because, well, actually, it should be today's Mill event. A couple hours from when this video gets uploaded, you guys will see that one go up. I'm having to reevaluate a lot of what I consider cringy and like really ask myself, why do I consider this cringy? Like, what is there a legit reason? Or do I have a personal beef with something? Am I working off a lot of untrue statements? You are allowed, and I think it's healthy, to have things you like and dislike, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you think that the thing you don't like is like cringy and no one should like it. That's when it kind of gets, But what about you guys? Do you guys have a preference against certain genres? Like you just don't like them? Is it a true preference? Or is there something else going on? I'm just kind of curious if anyone has gone through that. I know I definitely have. I gotta let these dry. And thank you for hanging out for a little bit. This is a really short one. I just want to note that I acknowledge that I have internalized misogyny concerning romance, and I'm trying to work on that. And also, I think we need to be a little more critical of romance when it's hidden under other genres, because I think some of these other books have just as bad relationships as the romances can. Like, they can be just as toxic, but we ignore it because we're distracted by all of the other floof that's going on in the story. But it's still toxic, so it still should be discussed. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Yes, I do think including the yellowing really does help for the teeth.